To follow along with the written version of this pattern and download the interactive PDF, use the links on screen now in the description below or by going to clubcrochet.com/lights. Hey there, it's Louie, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to crochet a bunch of little tiny Christmas lights and turn them into a little string of Christmas lights. This is my newest Minigurumi pattern. I've been doing a little challenge to myself to design patterns made in 100 stitches or less with absolutely no sewing required other than to sew them closed. You can see some of my little Minigurumi patterns here, like our little jellyfish and squids and stuff, and you can find more of them at minigurumi.com. But this pattern is especially way cute because, I mean, just like, I just love it. I think it's so cute. We're not only going to learn how to make it, like how to crochet it, but we're also going to learn how to make a little tiny loop at the top and how to create a few different ways to make a actual string of lights with them. If you want to find more Christmas themed patterns, by the way, like all the ones you see in the background here, you can find them at clubcrochet.com/Christmas. Now, if you want to skip ahead and just jump ahead in the video, you can use the time codes linked at the bottom of this video or at the base of the video here, but I do have a few little things that I wanted to go over. The first is that this pattern is not the most beginner-friendly pattern. I would say this pattern is pretty easy still, but if you are a complete beginner and you've never crocheted before in your life, I suggest you check out my Crocheting 101 series. It's totally free. It'll take you through all the things that you need to know to learn actually how to crochet. You can find it at crocheting101.com. There's also a Discord channel and Facebook group that are linked in the description. Those are great resources to ask for help from the community. We also do live crochet alongs every single week where you can join me crocheting something live together and I can actually help you with patterns live on screen. To join those, just make sure to like this video and subscribe down below and hit the little bell icon so you don't miss notifications when we do go live. There's also a left-handed and a right-handed version of this video available, so make sure to watch the version that works best for you. Like, subscribe, and yeah. Oh, and then finally, the last thing is the materials that you're going to need for this pattern. This pattern, we're using all worsted weight yarn and 100% cotton from our brand new seasonal crochet kits. These are giant seasonal crochet kits that make a whole series of little crocheted critters and creatures and little things like this. So you'll need some yarn, of course. I'm going to be using worsted weight cotton yarn. It's my favorite kind of yarn to use. I like using natural fibers if I can, but you can use any kind of yarn that you like. I just really like using cotton yarn personally. Specifically, I'm using a worsted weight cotton yarn. Whatever kind of yarn you use, will work, but just make sure to use the right crochet hook with the yarn that you're using. For this video, I'm going to be using a size G 4mm crochet hook. I find it works best with worsted weight yarn, especially with cotton. You'll also need a pair of scissors, of course, and then you will need a darning needle. This is just going to be for sewing it closed at the end. You don't need to sew anything together for this pattern. It's all made in one piece, but you will need to sew it closed at the end like you do for most amigurumi. So you'll need a little darning needle for that. We have these all available in the shop as well. It's a great way to support this channel if you're interested in supporting us monetarily. Also, you can support with a membership, but I'll talk about that later on in this video. The last thing that you'll need is some stuffing. You won't need very much. In fact, I like using the extra thread from a previous light as the stuffing for the next light to kind of save on stuffing, but you'll just need like literally barely any stuffing at all. Okay, well, I think that's everything I wanted to go over. Thank you so much for watching again. Make sure to like, subscribe, and let's get hooking. Okay, so we're going to start with our yellow yarn, and we're going to start with a magic loop method. If you never made the magic loop, I'm going to show you a quick version of it right now, but I do have a video tutorial that goes in a little bit more detail that I'll link up here in the description. You're going to start with the yarn facing downwards towards the ground and pinch it with your middle and thumb finger, and then we're going to go around our index finger and middle finger 2 times. We're looking to create an X on the front towards us and 2 parallel lines on the back of our hands away from us. Now take the tail end right here and the end attached to the ball and put it between your ring and pinky finger and close it in. That's just going to hold everything in place. Now you can take your crochet hook, have the back of your hand facing you, and with your crochet hook, you want to go under this first bar and hook onto the second one. Pull that second one under the first one and loop it around like this to create a little loop at the end of your crochet hook. Now go over this first bar and loop onto the second bar again. The best way to do this is to guide the yarn over with your index finger like that, to guide it onto the hook. Once it's on the hook, you can pull it through the loop on the hook. The easiest way to do that is to twist it so that the edge of the crochet hook lines up with the loop, and then scoop it like that to help get through all of the stitches without having to accidentally pull some stitches through. Now you can pull it off of your fingers, and you can pull this a little tighter, and it will tighten the magic loop. For our first round of our piece, we're going to be working into the magic loop itself. So we're going to actually work into all of our stitches from our first round into this magic loop. Speaking of, for round 1 of our Christmas lights, we're going to start by doing 8 single crochets into the center of our magic loop. For a single crochet, if you never made one before, we're going to go into the stitch, aka this magic loop, yarn over with the end attached to the ball here, and pull it under the stitch like that. And then going over the stitch, we'll yarn over with this end attached to the ball again and pull it through the 2 loops on the hook. And I like to do this a very similar way, where I twist it to line it up with the stitch and then scoop it to make sure it gets under all those stitches. We're going to do 8 of those into this magic loop. So there's 1, into the stitch, pull a loop through, then over the stitch and pull through 2 with a twist and a scoop. And there's 2. I'll go a little faster now. That's 3. Notice how I'm pinching down with my non-dominant hand. I'm holding our piece down a little bit. It makes everything a little bit easier. There is 4, 5, go a little quicker now, 6, 7, and 8 will be the end of round 1. Now we can pull this magic loop tight. We're just going to pull this tail end, and it'll tighten all of the loop with it. Notice how it's leaving just a little bit of a hole there. If you really want to make sure that hole's closed, hold it down like this and really pull it tight, and it'll close that loop up. Now we are going to be using the center of this hole actually to create the little loop at the top of our Christmas light in this round, or in this next round, yeah, anyhow. Okay, so we're going to continue on now to round 2. Before we start round 2, though, we do want to slip stitch into the very first stitch that we made to close this loop up. This is just going to create a tighter circle so that it's a more clear definition when we start going up with the end of our light. So we're going to go into both loops of the very first stitch that we made. That's going to be right here. You want to make sure you're under both of those loops of that first stitch. If you're having a hard time finding that, count backwards from where this loop is coming out 8 times, and it should be that one. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So these 2 loops right here is going to be the first stitch that you made in round 1. We're going to get our crochet hook under those 2 loops like this. I usually like to poke under the first 2 loops and then kind of poke down and use my fingers to kind of like pry the stitch over the hook instead of prying the hook into the stitch. It's a little bit easier. That stitch specifically is going to be the hardest one to work with, just heads up. Once you're into that stitch, we can yarn over with the end attached to the ball, pull it through the stitch. Again, I like to twist and scoop to make sure you're under all those stitches, and then pull that same loop through the loop on the hook to create something called a slip stitch, like that. So we slip stitch into the first stitch that we made to close that loop up. That's going to be not a normal way to make amigurumi. This is just specific for this pattern. Okay, so for round 2, we're going to start by chaining 1. We're going to yarn over with the end attached to the ball and pull it through the loop to create a chain. Now, for this round, we're going to work into the back loops only of all the stitches here, and we're going to do a single crochet into all these stitches. We're going to actually start into the next stitch and finish with the slip stitch that you just made. We're actually going to finish right here. And there's going to be 8 single crochets total worked only into the back loops. Now, a couple of things before we get going there. First off, what is a back loop? If you look at your stitch here, normally, like we just did with our slip stitch, you're going to be working under both loops simultaneously, just like this. But when you're working into the back loops only, you're working into the loop furthest away from you, which means this one right there. So that's going to create a very clean edge. You can see how the top really is clean right there. So we're creating this round right here. So it's going to make it a much cleaner edge right there. But the other thing that I wanted to say before we get going there is that I do have a technique that I like to use that makes it even cleaner of a 90-degree angle so that it's very, very clear where the edge is. Now this is completely unnecessary, really. Like you can do this without doing this technique, but I do like it a lot. I think it makes it just that much more clean. And that is to not only go into our back loop here, but also this loop on the back of your stitch. So we're gonna work into this loop and this loop back here at the same time. Now it's kind of hard to get your crochet hook under there, and again, like if you're struggling with this, don't worry about it. Just don't do this next part. It's completely optional and it's for advanced crocheters for a reason. So if you're not an advanced crocheter, I suggest just working into this back loop. But I'm going to show you how to get under both of these simultaneously as we work our single crochets around. The other thing that I wanted to say is that this round we're going to be working around our tail end to not only help hide it in, but we're also going to create the loop at the top of our Christmas light at the same time. To do that, we're going to work around our tail end for the first 4 stitches, then pull a loop through the center, and then continue working around our tail end for the last 4 stitches. That's just my caveat for this round. I think that's enough in like pre-instructions. Let's just go into it and we'll take it 1 stitch at a time. So for our first stitch, we're going to do a single crochet into our back loop only, but I'm also going to try to work into that back loop. I don't really know what else to call it. To do that, I'm going to get my crochet hook in place. So normally that would be just through the back loop, and you can do that, but I'm going to try to get this crochet hook also under this loop, and I'm going to use my nail to kind of pry my crochet hook in there and just pop it through like that. Just take your time with it. You don't have to do that if you don't want to though. Then we're going to yarn over with the end attached to the ball. We're going to pull it through all those loops. This one, you really want to do the twist and scoop to get under those loops. And then we're going to take our tail end from the very beginning, place it between the 2 loops on the hook and the one attached to the ball. And then just place it in between. We're going to work around it as if it's not even there. Then we're going to yarn over with the end attached to the ball and pull it through the 2 loops on the hook to finish our first single crochet in round 2. We want to do 4 of those in a row and then create the loop at the top. So we're going to do another one. There's our first single crochet. Our next one's going to be right here. We're going to make sure we're under that back loop, and then I'm also going to pry into the back loop. Again, I don't know the name for that loop. Just like that. Place our tail end over the crochet hook, but yarn over with the end attached to the ball and do a twist and a scoop to get under all those stitches like that. I always like to pull it a little bit tighter as well so that it tightens onto my crochet hook, just to tighten my stitches a bit, which is really nice for a small piece like this. And then we'll yarn over and pull it through the 2 loops to finish our second single crochet. Again, we want 8 of those. So there's 1, 2, here's our third. We're gonna go back loop and the other back loop right there. Yarn over, pull it through with a twist and a scoop. Make sure our tail end is between the loops there, and then pull everything a little tighter. Yarn over and pull through 2 loops to finish our third one. Let's do a 4th right here, back loop, and this loop on the back right here, using your nail to help pry our crochet hook into it like that. And you don't need much nails. Look, I don't really have much nails at all, so don't worry if you got like really tiny nails. Should still work. Okay, now one's going to be our 4th single crochet. We have 4 more to get to the end, but before I continue our last 4, I want to take this tail end, pull it a little bit tighter to close that loop in the center just a bit. And then I'm going to take my crochet hook, go straight into the center of our piece, yarn over with our tail end here, just yarn over and pull a loop through that center. So I'm just going to pull it through the center like that. And I don't want to pull it out any more than however long I want the Christmas light end to be. And I've found, originally I was doing them about this long, but I actually find that's a little long. So I kind of want it to be pretty short like that. Really, really tiny little loop at the very top. Don't pull it out too much. You still want it to be out. In fact, if you want to, you can make it really long and we can tighten it at the end of this part as well. Now we'll continue on our piece. Let's get started on our next single crochet, but we're going to work around this tail end for the last 4 stitches here to keep this loop locked into place so that it doesn't get pulled out when we're trying to hang it. So we're going to go into our next stitch right here, go into back loop and other back loop like this, pry our crochet hook in there, yarn over, pull it through the stitch. And before we yarn over and pull through 2 to finish up that single crochet, we're going to take our tail end again, place it between both loops on the hook and the end attached to the ball, yarn over with the end attached to the ball, and pull through our 2 loops to finish that single crochet and work around this tail end. Now we can pull it a little bit tighter, and you can see how it's giving a little bit of a fight back, you know, which is good. We don't want it to get too loose there. So let's pull it maybe a little bit tighter than that, just nice and small little loop at the top. That's pretty good. And then continue on. We have 3 more single crochets to do to finish our 8 single crochets. Next stitch is going to be right here. We're going to go through that back loop and the loop, other back loop right there. Yarn over at the end attached to the ball. Pull it through that stitch. Make sure the tail end is between the 2 loops and the end attached to the ball, and yarn over and pull through 2. Okay, just 2 more. Here's our second to last back loop and other back loop, yarn over, pull it through the 2 stitches, get that tail end between, yarn over and pull through 2. It's really important to work around that tail end so that everything gets locked into place. For our last stitch here, this is going to be the slip stitch that we made. It's kind of hard to find the back loop that you'd want to use with this one, so if you can't get into there, don't worry. I think that it's this stitch right here, so I'm going to kind of like pry under that stitch. But if you can't find that one, that's totally fine, especially for that last stitch. It doesn't matter too much. Pull through the 2 loops, get that tail end between, and pull through 2, like that. To finish up this part, we're just going to slip stitch into the very first stitch that we made, not the first chain. So that's going to be, the chain's going to be right here. You don't want to work into that one. You actually want to work into the top of the first single crochet you made, which is going to be right here. And we're going to work under both of those loops simultaneously and do a slip stitch, kind of like we did in round 1. If you're having a hard time finding that, again, you can just count backwards 8 from where our loop is coming out here. So we can go 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's get this tail end out of the way. Let's try that again. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 5, 6, 7, and 8. So it's going to be this one right there. That's going to be your first stitch that we're going to work into. I always like keeping a needle close so that I can do things like that and count stitches a little bit easier. We're going to get into both of those loops simultaneously, yarn over, pull it through that stitch with a twist and a scoop, and then through the loop on the hook with a scoop as well. And then we can actually cut the yellow yarn. This part's a little spooky, but really you can. It's not a big deal. Cut the yellow yarn, or whatever you want your top color to be, and just pull that loop all the way through like that. And that's going to be the end of round 2 and the top of our Christmas light. And you can kind of see we got it all set up now. Sometimes it's nice to just set up a bunch of these tops of Christmas lights before you make a bunch of the bodies of the Christmas lights, but yeah, you don't have to. If you want to tighten this loop up, you'll see that it's kind of hard to tighten it up, but you can pull this tail end, just be really gentle, pull it from the base of where the tail end is coming out, and you can pull that tighter just slightly. It's going to be very hard to tighten it later when we finish our piece, so it's kind of now or never. Okay, now we're going to need a color that we're going to make our Christmas light. I'm going to use green because I actually don't have a lot of these green Christmas lights, and if I want to do a bunch of different random colors, it'd be nice to have a few of the green ones to go with all the red and the white ones that I've already made. For round 3, we're going to work only in the front loops of all the round stitches. So where the last round we worked into the back loop, meaning the one furthest away from us of all these V's at the top, in this round we're going to work into the front loop, this loop closest to us. This is going to create it's going to make it go out a little bit easier and be more clear that this part is different than the top of it. So you can kind of see how it really balloons out kind of, and that is by working into the front loops only. So we're going to take our crochet hook, go into the front loop of where the slip stitch is coming out. So if you pull this tail tight, you'll see it's coming out of right here. We're going to get our crochet hook under that front loop only this one right here. And then we can yarn over with a loop that we make with this yarn. So if we just like kind of make a loop like this over itself, you can yarn over with it and just pull that through the stitch like this. And then we can yarn over again and pull through using the long end, not the tail end of this, pull it through the stitch like so, and that's going to create a chain and get us started in round 3. We're also going to take this tail end here and place it over our stitch with this other green or whatever your main color is tail end. We're going to try to work around both these tail ends simultaneously for the first 2 or 3 stitches in round 3 here, just so that it locks everything into place. Okay, so for this round, we're going to do a pattern of stitches to make this round a little bit bigger than the round before. This pattern is going to be a single crochet into the first stitch and then an increase into the next stitch. Again, we're only working into the front loops only. When I say an increase, that just means that there's 2 single crochets going into the exact same stitch. So let's just take it 1 stitch at a time though. We're going to start with our first stitch into the exact same place that we pulled that loop through. So we're going to go into that same exact stitch right here. See, only under that front loop. We're going to yarn over with the end attached to the ball and then pull it through that stitch. Now we're going to yarn over, making sure that our tail ends are between the 2 loops and the loop attached to the ball. Yarn over with the end of our crochet hook and then pull it through the 2 loops with a twist and a scoop like that. And that's going to be our first single crochet made. I always like to pull, especially this green stitch, a little bit tighter, just so that everything tightens up just a bit. Okay, so that's our first stitch. For our second stitch, we're going to go into the next front loop only, which is going to be right here on the piece. It's kind of hard to see, but this one is the last stitch and this one is the next stitch. You can kind of see this V right here, and it's going to be the loop right above it. If you look from the top, you'll see there's 2 loops as we've been working around. But again, we only want to work into the front loop, the one closest to us. So we're going to get our crochet hook into that front loop only. I'm just going to pull my tail ends off to the side so you can see it a little bit easier. Take our crochet hook, get only under that first front loop. Sometimes I like to just place the crochet hook in place and then kind of like wiggle it until the stitch gets in there. Then we'll yarn over, pull it through that stitch to get our single crochet started. Then we can place our 2 tail ends between the 2 loops on the hook and the one attached to the ball, like that. And then we'll yarn over and pull it through those 2 loops to finish our second single crochet, which is actually the first single crochet of our first increase. And that means that our next stitch, our next single crochet is going to be in the exact same place because it's an increase stitch. So we want to work 1 more single crochet into the same place where this one went to make an increase. So we're going to take our crochet hook, go into the exact same stitch, yarn over, pull that loop under the stitch, same stitch, then yarn over again, and pull through 2 loops on the hook to make our third single crochet and the end of our first increase stitch. You can kind of see how there's 2 V's going into 1 stitch there. That's going to indicate that it's an increase. Okay, so now these 2 tail ends are done for. We can just pull them off to the side. I'm going to pull this open just a bit. I'm a little worried of that loop getting pulled out, so I just don't want that to happen. So I just want to keep an eye on it. And now we're going to go into our next front loop only. Now we can continue that pattern of doing a single crochet in the first and an increase into the next all the way around. I believe that's going to be 4 of those repeats total. We just finished 1 repeat. So our second repeat is going to be a single crochet here and then an increase right here. That's going to bring your stitch count up from 8 stitches, which is what you had in round 1 and 2. And at the end of round 3 here, we should have 12 stitches around is our goal. Okay, so we're going to go into the next front loop only. So if you look from the top here, I only want to get into that first loop right there. Yarn over, pull it through the stitch, yarn over again, and pull through 2 to finish that, the start of the next repeat. So there's going to be the first single crochet of the next repeat, The next stitch is going to be right here. We want to do 2 single crochets into that same stitch. That's going to be 1, and then into the same exact stitch will be 2. Okay. Now let's do it again, the same repeat, single crochet into the first stitch right here, front loops only. There's our first single crochet, and then increase into the next one right here, 2 into the same stitch. 1 and 2. Last repeat is going to be a single crochet into our first one right here. There's 1, and then 2 into the next one right here. 1 and 2. Notice how our stitch is kind of getting pulled out a little bit. To fix that, we're going to pull this yellow one specifically. You can kind of see where that loop is getting pulled out. Pull this yellow one tighter, and it should pull it a little bit tighter. Hide it in just slightly. Okay, so that's going to be the end of round 3. And you kind of see how it's starting to go out. You could actually make a little tiny ornament in this same manner, by the way. It's a very similar kind of pattern. Okay, so for round 4 is actually pretty easy. All we need to do for round 4 is do a single crochet into every stitch around. Now in this round, we don't have to worry about the difference between the back loop or the front loop or the top loop or whatever. You just want to get under both loops simultaneously of all the stitches around. You do want to make sure that you work into the first single crochet that you made in round 3, which is going to be the one that we currently are looking at right here. But again, if you want to count backwards, you should have had 12 stitches in the last round. So if you count back from where that loop is coming out and count back 12 stitches, it should end up right here. Okay, so we're going to get our crochet hook into both loops simultaneously, 1 and 2. Notice how I kind of wiggle my way into that stitch. It makes it just a little bit easier. Yarn over, pull it through both loops simultaneously with a twist and a scoop, like that. Then yarn over again and pull through 2 loops, like so, to finish that single crochet. Okay, so we're gonna just do a single crochet into every single stitch around. So there's 1, we're gonna do 12 of these. 2, and 3. And as I finish up this round of single crochets, if you haven't yet, you should consider liking and subscribing to this video. That would be really cool. It's totally free to do. Obviously, I spend a lot of time and effort on these videos, and liking and subscribing actually does help out a pretty good amount. And it's totally free. You don't have to do much anything to do that. Plus, we do live crochet alongs every single week that you could join in and crochet along with me. And the only way to get notified of those is to subscribe. So please consider subscribing down below. Okay, so that's going to be the end of that round of single crochets. You can kind of see how we've started to balloon out a little bit. And that's going to be the end of round 4. Okay, so for round 5, we're going to be doing a series of repeats to start to decrease our piece down. What does that mean? So if our last round, before the one that we just finished, in round 3, we did increases where we did 2 stitches in the same place to increase our count up. That's going to be an increase. That's going to be one right there. In this round, we're going to be doing a decrease. Specifically, we're going to do something that I call the invisible decrease because it's very hard to see. You can use any kind of decrease that you want if you feel more comfortable with other decreases. I do have a video tutorial that goes through a few different ways to do decreases that I'll link up here. Obviously, I'll show you how to do the invisible decrease when we get there. But the goal here is that we want to start to slowly shrink our piece down so that it comes down to just a little bit of a point, you know, like a Christmas light. It's actually not too crazy to do though. This round is going to be the following repeat. We're going to start to go down from 12 stitches down to 10 stitches around. And to do that, we're going to do 4 single crochets and then 1 invisible decrease after that. So let's start by just doing our 4 single crochets. We're going to go into both loops and just do 4 single crochets like normal. So there's 1, and then to the next stitch right here will be 2. Here is 3. And then 1 more right here will be 4 single crochets. See? 1, 2, 3, and 4. If you're having a hard time finding where the end is, I can kind of tell where it is because I can find where that little where it looks just a little bit different in the end here. And then if I follow it up, I'll find my stitches around. Okay, so that's 4 single crochets. Now we want to do an invisible decrease. So for an invisible decrease, we are going to start working again into those front loops only like we did in round 3. So we're going to go into the front loops only of not only the next stitch, but the stitch after that stitch as well. So this stitch and this stitch at the same time. We're going to get under both of those front loops with our crochet hook, which actually is easier than it looks. And then we're just going to do a single crochet working under those 2 front loops, and it's going to create a very hidden decrease, aka invisible decrease. So we'll take our crochet hook, poke straight up from the bottom like this to make sure you're only under that first front loop, and then loop our crochet hook around to get into position under the next front loop right there, and just poke it straight up as well. Now we're under 2 front loops simultaneously. Once you're under both of those front loops, we can yarn over and then twist it so that the hook lines up with the stitch. That's going to be really important in this round, this stitch specifically. And then scoop it like that to make sure you're under all of those stitches. Once I get pulled through with that, you can kind of see how this first loop is a little bit looser than the second one. I kind of just pull it a little tighter so that both of these loops match up. Now don't like pull it so tight that you're like strangling your crochet hook, but just enough so that they kind of match up a little bit. Then we can yarn over again and pull through both loops on this hook with a twist and a scoop like before, and that's going to be an invisible decrease. Now don't worry, we're going to do another one of those in just a second, so if you had a hard time with that, just wait just a second, I'll show you it again. But that is going to be the end of our first repeat in our 5th round here. So that means we want to do one more repeat doing the exact same thing. 4 single crochets and then 1 invisible decrease. So let's do that again. We're going to go into the next stitch. Now, specifically with invisible decreases, the next stitch is hard to see, hence the invisible part. The next stitch is actually going to be right here, which is a little further away than you'd think. The best way I've noticed to find that is if you really look at the top here, you can kind of see the both, like the little V's along the edge, and it kind of gets hidden back there with that next invisible decrease. But it is kind of hard to see. So just go really slowly. If you need to count backwards from your stitches to find that one, that might work as well. We're going to do 4 single crochets starting into our next stitch right here. So get our crochet hook in there, yarn over, and pull it under the stitch for our first single crochet, and pull through 2. So there's 1 single crochet, 2, 3, and 4 single crochets, and then another invisible decrease. So let's do that invisible decrease again. We're going to go front loops only. I always go up from the bottom to the top, so front loop and front loop like that, under both loops simultaneously, yarn over, and twist and scoop through those stitches, pull a little bit tighter, yarn over, and pull through both loops with a twist and a scoop to finish that second and last invisible decrease. Okay, so now you should have 10 stitches around. If you want to count your stitches, you should only have 10 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. When I'm counting these V's. Okay. All right, so for our next round, that was the end of round 5. For round 6, I believe, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, for round 6, we're going to be doing a very similar repeat. This time we're going to do 3 single crochets and then an invisible decrease repeated 2 times around. That's going to bring our stitch count down from 10 stitches, which is our current stitch count, down to 8 stitches. We actually only have 2 more rounds left, so it's this round and the next round. We're going down to 8 stitches around though. So we're going to go into our next stitch right here. Boop, boop. And we're going to do 3 single crochets. So there's 1 single crochet, 2. Notice how I'm poking down into my piece, and then I'm poking my crochet hook up out of my piece. It just makes things a little bit easier. Okay, so there's 3 single crochets, 1, 2, 3, and then our next invisible decrease, we're going to go front loop only, yarn over, and a single crochet with a twist and a scoop. And scoop. Okay, one more repeat there. 3 single crochets. So there's our next one. Got 1, 2, and 3 single crochets, and then our invisible decrease with the front loop, yarn over, and single crochet. There we go. Okay, so that's going to be the end of round 6. Now we're going to do round 7, which is actually our very final round in our entire piece. Just one more round to go. For round 7, it's going to be a very similar repeat. This time, instead of doing 3 single crochets between increase or invisible decreases, we're going to do just 2 single crochets, then an invisible decrease, repeated 2 times total to bring our stitch count down from 8 stitches, which is what we currently have, down to 6 stitches around. So we're going to go into the next stitch right here, and we're going to do 2 single crochets. So we got 1 single crochet in the next, and then to the next one right here, we're going to do 2. Notice how I'm pinching my whole piece closed. It just makes it a little bit easier to kind of move my piece around. Okay, so we did our 2 single crochets. Now we want our invisible decrease, so we're going to go front loop and front loop, yarn over, pull under those 2 front loops, yarn over, pull through 2 for our invisible decrease. And then we're going to do that repeat one more time. Single crochet 2. The next stitch, again, because that's an invisible decrease, it's kind of hard to see, but it's going to be right here. It's going to be 1 single crochet. Notice how our yellow yarn is trying to poke its way through. I'm just going to use this stick to kind of stuff it back in there. 1 and 2. And then same thing, invisible decrease, front loop. This time I'm going to use my nail to kind of guide my crochet hook in there. Get into position under the next one and guide my crochet hook in there like that. I'm under 2 of them. It's kind of hard to see because they kind of bunch together, but they're right there. And then our last single crochet with the twist and a scoop and pull through 2. To finish up our little Christmas lights, I'm just going to cut a pretty small end. You actually don't need it very long at all. And just pull it all the way through like that. Now we can stuff our piece up and then sew it closed. I'm just going to use a little bit of stuffing here. You can actually use extra thread as well instead of stuffing if you don't have, if you'd rather just use some extra thread from a previous light. But I'm just going to use this stuffing here, and I like using a wooden stick here. A lot of times I use a pencil with the eraser end of the pencil, which will help guide the stuffing into the piece. It just helps out a little bit more. You don't need to overstuff it, like really you barely need to stuff it at all. Like that is enough stuffing for sure. Yeah, that's pretty good. And then we can just use our needle, thread it on a needle and sew this end closed. To sew closed, we're going to take our needle and we're going to go under the front loops of all the stitches that we made in our last round. So this one closest to us right there. So only under that one front loop, not under both loops like this. See how there's 2 loops around the needle? We just want to go under that first front loop. We're going to do that through all the front loops all the way around. So there's 1 and 2, 3. Notice how I pull it to the side. I grab it with my pinky and I hold it down to keep it out of my way. 4, 5, and 6, like that. Kind of see how all those front loops are pulled in. Now we can grab it just at the very end here, just to hold it tight, and then pull this tight, and it'll close that hole up. Now take the needle, go straight through the center, and then through pretty much anywhere that you want on the piece, and we'll just pull it tight-ish like that. And then we can just cut this end nice and close. It should not come undone. You see there's a little bit of piece coming through, so I'll just use the back of my needle to kind of stuff that back into the piece and get those little fuzzies out of the way. And then I always like to tweak our piece to get it into the positions that we want, which is really nice with our cotton yarn because it kind of holds the shape a little bit better. But there we go. We have a little tiny Christmas light that we can easily string to some lights. Okay, so the very last thing that I want to show you if you like to string these lights up is a few different, two methods specifically that I've been using to string these lights so that you have a big string of them. Now, obviously, you're going to need a decent amount of these to string them together. And I'll just show you how to get it started here, and then we'll move on from that. The first way to string the lights, the first thing that you're going to need, rather, is you're going to need some yarn in a different color or whatever you want your string to be. So I'm just going to use our black yarn here. And the first way to do this is actually the way easy way is just to thread it onto a needle, go through the loop at the top of one of your lights, pull it as far as you want it to be. You want this to be like, you know, as far away as you want it to be. So if you want this end to be really, really long, you're going to need to put the first light pretty far away. But we'll just keep it nice and close here. And then you're going to go around and back into the same loop like that and pull it through. If you want to secure it even better, you can go through the same loop that you made and it'll create a bit of a knot too. And then I just do that. You can do that with all your loops, and then it will hold it tight on your piece, and it shouldn't slide around on your piece because of the way that we kind of knotted it to the top. So that is probably the easiest way to create your string of lights. Very, very simple, but you don't know how long you want your lights to be. Maybe you want a really, really long end, and this method's gonna be kind of hard for if you want to make it longer or something like that. So my other method that I use is to create a chain and to work a chain around each of these loops as we go. So we're going to start by making a slip knot. If you never made a slip knot before, all you need to do is twist the yarn around like that to make a loop, fold the loop over itself, and then grab the inside like this and pull it tight. This is going to create a little chain, or a slip knot rather, so that when I pull this end, nothing happens, but when I pull the other end attached to the ball, it pulls our loop tighter. Now you want to get your crochet hook into there, and we're going to create a series of chains. I'm going to start by chaining 10 because that's how far I think is really nice to be away from each of the different lights. So there's going to be 1 for a chain. You just yarn over and pull it through the loop. So there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then we're going to take our crochet hook, go into the loop at the top of our piece, yarn over, pull it through that loop and the loop on our hook at the same time like that. And that should chain around that loop and keep it onto the piece. And then we'll just chain another 10 and do it again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And I like choosing colors so that they are like similar colors to each other, but you can kind of see how it just kind of holds onto our piece really easily. You can remove this really easily too by just pulling the chains out. It'll release the Christmas light as well. But this way you can continuously add more lights to it. So let's go ahead, we'll go to white now. So we'll go into the top of our white stitch, yarn over, and pull the loop through the white stitch and through the chain like that. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And when you're done, I would say chain at least 10 away from the last light that you made so that you have a little bit to hang with. But once you're absolutely finished, all you need to do is cut the yarn and pull the loop all the way through, and it'll create a knot at the end. And then you can use these two ends to hang on to nails or whatever you want so that you can hang your lights a little bit easier. So that is an alternative method for how to string your lights a little bit easier. Okay. thank you so much for crocheting this pattern along with me. I hope you enjoyed making it as much as I enjoyed designing it, and I am obsessed with these little Minigurumi patterns. I mean, look at how cute and fun they are. I'm obsessed with them. If you want to check out more of my Minigurumi patterns and see more of the things that I've made with this challenge, like our little jellyfish, and I'm actually working on a little tiny goblin, which if you know me, you know I'm obsessed with little goblins. So I'm very excited about this pattern. If you want to find more of them, you can find them at clubcrochet.com/minigurumi or at minigurumi.com. You can also find a series of my Christmas themed patterns at clubcrochet.com/Christmas. There are a bunch of them, from a little snow or a Santa ornament to a customizable snowman. I even have these brand new Christmas ornaments that I'm really proud of. I think I'm actually going to start adding butts to some of them too. So keep a lookout for that. Yeah, thank you again so much for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe down below. And if you'd like to support us monetarily, consider a Club Crochet membership. Members get early access to all of my patterns. They get access to my exclusive library of tutorials. I come out with new ones every month. And you even get discounts in the shop. Memberships start at only $5 a month, and you can even get a free trial to see if it's something you're interested in, and you can cancel it at any time. There are a whole lot of patterns like this, and it is by far the best way to support us monetarily, which really is the only way that we exist, is thanks to the members out there. So anybody who is a Club Crochet member that is watching, thank you so much, so much. I really appreciate your support. Okay, guys, thanks again for watching. Pasta la pizza, happy hooking, and I'll see you in the next pattern. Bye.